In this video, we will learn about constructors. Constructors is the most important part of Java programming. It plays the vital role when you are creating different classes and each class is linked to each other. So, what is constructor? Constructor is a method that is used to initialize objects. So, in this example, if you see, my class is demo program, and on top I have a method without any return type. It doesn't have any return type. If you see, by return type I mean public int demo program or public void demo program. So it does not have any such return types associated with this method. So this method is without any return type, and the name of this method is exactly same as the name of the class. So when you have this kind of method in your program, it's called as a constructor. In Java, if user has not written any constructor, Java creates a constructor automatically. But if user has written a constructor, then that will be your default constructor. So in any case, a default constructor is always present in your program. Also, a constructor can be used to initialize values to attributes when you pass the attributes inside the constructor. Here you can see I have a variable as x, and I am trying to pass some value, for example number 5, to the variable x. So I can do this in the constructor. I am able to initialize the value of x to value 5 inside my constructor. So when I am creating the object of this class using new operator, the constructor is called and the value to variable x is assigned at this moment. So now the value of my variable x is 5. So when I am printing, the value of x will be 5. But suppose if I have not assigned any value to x inside the constructor, if I have left this field as blank, just like my example here I have not initialized any value to variable x, then in that case the value of x will be 0 here. So in Java, what happens if you do not initialize any value to the variable, then the value will be as 0 or null. So if I take float y and I do not initialize any value to my float y, the value here will be printed as 0.0. If I have taken boolean flag and I do not assign any value to my boolean flag inside the constructor, Java will take its value as false. So Java will assign the default values to the variables if you do not assign those values inside the constructor. So in Java, you have two kind of constructors. One is default constructor, that is automatically created by Java, and user do not need to write that constructor if user does not want to initialize any value to it. And the second one is parameterized constructor. In the parameterized constructor, user can assign some value to the constructor while creating the object. So in my main method, you can see I have used new operator to create a object here, and in the class I am, like, besides the class name, I am passing some value, integer value here. So this is the parameter that I am passing to my constructor. So here in this example, I have taken an example of a parameterized constructor and I'm passing value 10 over the constructor. So whatever value you pass as y, that value needs to be assigned to my variable x. So at this moment, the value of x is 10 in this program. So when I'm trying to print the value of x, the result is number 10 and not number 5. In my first example, the number is number 5 because I have initialized x to 5 in my default constructor, but in the second example I have passed some value to it as a parameterized constructor, and in this example the value is 10. So now, since you know the two kind of constructors are available, next we will see how these constructors are invoked from each other within a class, and how in inheritance these constructors are called by each other. So what is a constructor invocation? So when one constructor calls another constructor with respect to the current object, this process is called as method of constructor invocation or chaining of constructor within one another. So constructor chaining can be done in two ways. The first one is within the same class, and this can be achieved by using this keyword, and the second one is from base class, that is in inheritance, by using a super keyword. So first let's see how this keyword works for constructor chaining. So in Java, the default constructor is first called from your main method, and then default constructor will call another constructors, and another constructor can call as many other constructors as the chaining continues. So this is a simple example. Here I have my class demo program, and the let's see from the main method. In main method, using new operator, I am creating a object, and once the object is created, it first calls the default constructor. So on top first method is my constructor, that is default constructor, and in this constructor the first line is this keyword. So in this I am passing integer number 5. So this keyword can be used for method for constructor chaining, and when you are trying to invoke another constructor, this keyword always needs to be on the top line in your constructor. It cannot be written after system.out.println. That will be a compilation error. So this keyword always needs to be on the first line in your constructor. So this will call second call. It will check which constructor has the parameter, just one integer parameter, and since it can find the second call, the second constructor has just one integer y. So here the call will go on the second method. In the second method, again another constructor has to be called using this keyword again, because I am passing two more integers as parameter in this keyword. So then the call goes to the third constructor, and in third constructor there is no other this keyword called. So this it is the last constructor call, and my parameterized constructor number 2 called will be printed on your screen. So this is a thumb rule of constructor chaining. The this keyword always needs to be the first line in the constructor, and another one is there has to be one constructor where this keyword is not used. So what will be the output of this code? First, my parameterized constructor number 2 called, second, my parameterized constructor number 1 called, and third, my default constructor. These three lines will be printed on your console. Next we will see how inheritance comes into picture and how super keyword is used to call constructor chaining. And once I explain the super keyword functioning here, we will see on Eclipse how these constructors are called, and we will execute this on our Eclipse environment. Super keyword is used to call constructor of a superclass. So in inheritance, when you are having a subclass which is extending a superclass, and you have constructors in both the classes, then when you are creating an object of your subclass, first this object will instantiate the variables of your superclass. So let's take an example. Here on left I have demo program, and on right I have subprogram which is extending demo program, and in both the classes I have default constructors, demo program default constructor, and on the right side I have subprogram default constructor. Then let's see how this works. Let's go to on right side, let's see main method, and in this main method I'm creating the object of my subprogram. When I'm creating this object, I'm using new operator and I'm creating this object, then first the call will go to the constructor, that is default constructor of subprogram. Here if you notice, in this subprogram default constructor I have super keyword written as the first line inside this constructor. What does this super keyword does? This super keyword will call the constructor of the base class. So it will automatically call the constructor of the base class, and that is demo program constructor. In demo program constructor I have printed my superclass constructor called, and then the call will come back to the next line in the subprogram constructor. So output of this programming will be my superclass constructor called, and the second line will be my subclass constructor called. So in inheritance, any number of classes can be extended, and the subclass constructor will always reach up to the constructors in the chain till the top level is reached. So in my next video, we will go through all these constructor examples and we will execute it on Eclipse, and you will have a clear understanding of how chaining in constructor works. And this is very important concept in Java because constructors can be really tricky at times, and it gets very confusing if it's not understood properly. So once we see the execution, we will have a good understanding of the concepts and how the constructor is being invoked. So stay tuned for the upcoming videos.